Hello, this is Jailer. So, Cinemacon, another year has come and passed, movies have been revealed, and slates have. I'm kidding, we really got nothing this year. Like I already complained about on the Discord after Cinemacon had wrapped up, but in comparison to other years, we got jack shit. Now, as a frame of reference and explanation for anyone who may not know, Cinemacon is an annual business convention where film companies and the like show their upcoming slate, usually just within the calendar year, and the audience are really only movie theater owners and journalists. I've been keeping up with it since 2022, and I only know that because that was the one where El Muerto was announced. Rest in peace, baby girl. Maybe in another life. Even in that short time, CinemaCon 2026 has been the quietest, most dry one I've seen yet, with almost every project being something we already knew about beforehand or hidden behind 12 different layers of red tape. In comparison, both 2022 and 2023 had a huge news on Across the Spider-Verse, first reveal of M3 Expendables 4, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Quiet Place Day 1, and such. 2024 had Alien Romulus, Deadpool and Wolverine, Superman, Beetlejuice. 2025 was a huge one with reveals for Spider-Man Brand New Day and Beyond Spider-Verse, which I suppose still applies here. Superman, you get the point. While we weren't always shadow drop content, we still got fairly deep dives, but this year just kind of felt dry. A desert, really, especially in comparison with the past. Suppose that one is on me, though. Think the party would be at its peak every single year. Maybe it is waning, and that's okay. Just would have preferred to know that. E23, please don't be a fuck up. With that said, we still got some news, and I figured I'd do a lightning round talking about the pieces that actually interest me. So first, let's get right into now, interestingly, and this may be kind of a hot take, it feels like we got more news out of the smaller companies and productions than the major studios, mainly Studio Canal revealing three new projects before the first presentation even started at CinemaCon, with the reveal of a remake of Escape from New York, two new entries in the Paddington series, and most interestingly to me, albeit Studio Canal isn't really behind it, it's more distributing it in the UK, is Eli Roth's Ice Cream Man, his newest horror film. Now, if you look at the comment sections about anything related to this film, even before the first reveal, well, the best comparison I'd have is the third act of Project X, and I don't really mean that as a compliment in any way, shape, or form.
What's he doing? Give me back my fucking nose!
Look, as someone whose only view into Eli Roth's filmography was 2023's Thanksgiving, but with knowledge of what his other films are, yeah, there's a lot of shock horror, which is a discussion in its own right. There is something to be said that if you're going into a project with only a view of making the most crafts, biting thing with no balance, there's a decent chance it won't be good in plenty of other aspects. No, I thought Thanksgiving was decent for what it was, and really, in the age of TikTok and Twitter users running creatives off the internet and posting their exact coordinates in the town square like Martin Luther, I do think there's value to having creativity first, balls to the walls projects like Terrify or Postal or Ice Cream Man around, especially in a time like this. And hell, I'm not even going to restrain myself reviewing it if it does turn out to be bad. I thought Chapter 3 of The Coffin of Andy and Lele fell off hard to the point I didn't even finish it, but there's a long spectrum from that and Enforcing the Second Crusader Age. Trailer looks alright. I do question having a 30-second teaser in the middle of April for a film coming out in early August, but I've seen weirder, quieter marketing runs work out. I'll go see if it's at my local theater around, and I'm sure I'll have a good time. Consolidating this into one category because it's Spider-Man, and that means you've probably already heard about it. We got 4 new pictures for Beyond the Spider-Verse, and they look sick as hell, completely staying within the style the first 2 films established. And the attendees got a look at the opening, which picks up right from the last film and shows the two Molasses, them fighting. Can't wait. Anyway, the Hobie picture looks sick as hell. We'll be there on preview night. For Spider-Man Brand New Day, we got 2 posters with a really sick one that looks like it's straight out of the TASM films, and I really like the fact that they're dipping into the style and influence of the other films, as well as using the wealth the MCU is providing for them and mixing them into a beautiful new color. And it really has me excited for this movie. Less so than Beyond, but man is it close. Sony Pictures Animation have revealed their latest animated project being the film Buds, which follows a plant breaking the one rule plants have: don't talk to humans. Now admittedly, while it's an insane premise, I'm less interested in the movie itself, at least as far out as it's stated for a Christmas 2027 release. Rather, I'm interested in how Sony Pictures Animation is going to look over these next 5 years or so. I mean, unless you happen to live in the Cook Islands, you're at least semi-aware of K-pop Demon Hunters and its impact over the past year or so. For my Cook Islands viewers, though, K-pop Demon Hunters is a Sony Pictures Animation original sold off to Netflix during the COVID era, and while both companies seem fine with sending it off to die, they refused. The film was released in late June, and by August it had a small theatrical release, which was expanded over Halloween weekend. October saw them have a Fortnite collab, March saw them with a McDonald's collab, and the toy sales are only starting now. An Oscar win there, a Super Bowl performance there, sequel announced by November. Like I said, you probably already know that story, just like saying it because it's a fucking insane comeback story. Only thing that really comes close to it is 2017's Greatest Showman, and that's not anywhere at this level. Now, my point, Sony Pictures Animation's film after K-pop Demon Hunters was February's GOAT, and despite the marketing putting K-pop Demon Hunters at the front for obvious reasons, it didn't translate over, making 190 million on a 80 to 90 million dollar budget. The times two rule, and it isn't a pretty story. My thought here being, again, what does Sony Pictures Animation's next 5 years look like? Spider-Verse, their most popular series at this point, is ending next year. K-pop Demon Hunters' success was unknown to even them, with the sequel coming out by 2030, if even then. Can they translate their original successes over, or is their lightning in a bottle going to wind up shocking them? Either way, I think it's going to be a very fascinating thing to observe the three distinct eras of Sony Pictures Animation. Pre-Spider-Verse, post-Spider-Verse, and post-K-pop Demon Hunters. I don't know, I'll go check it out. Not much to say when we're still a year and a half out. Should probably make a more general video about Sony Pictures Animation, considering how much I had to yap about. Look, I'm not a guy who complains about sequels because they're sequels. Every film deserves to be looked at in its own standing. If they are proven to have good ideas or at least heart behind it, I'm willing to meet at the table with it. Man, did hearing the news of both Weapons and Longlegs getting sequels, prequels, whatever, on back-to-back days kind of break my heart. Both are great films in their own right, and I think this is the first instance I can really point out where Hollywood took the wrong lessons from these films. I don't want another Weapons. I want another Weapons. Both did fantastic at the box office and with critics. They are proof original projects can survive on their own with the right quality and love to them. Look, I'm not gonna lie, I'm just watching Doomsday for the Thunderbolts, maybe Spider-Man. First trailer for Avengers Doomsday was revealed at Cinemacon, and as far as I understand, the reason it hasn't leaked is because they had a fucking beam that showed people's phones that were recording and escorted those people out, which is just really funny to me.
Biden, blast!
I had some shots of characters fighting and RDJ Doom voice reveal, that was about it. It's not that I'm not excited about it, but it was also like the only thing of full note of Disney's presentation at CinemaCon. And I get that they're saving it for San Diego Comic-Con and D23, but man, that's all I really had to say about CinemaCon. Like I said, we really got starved out this particular time. Hope we get one of substance next year. But in addition, I watched My Hero Academia Season 1 and was pretty good. I had watched both the first and second seasons years ago, but it was at a time I was in a pretty precarious state of my life, so I decided to rewatch it, especially with the epilogue / 10 years later episode coming out soon. May even be out by now, knowing my work schedule. With that said, My Hero Academia Season 1 is pretty good, despite further knowledge that the show later goes on to focus on the general Class 1A group and that the main three switch from Deku, Uraka, Ida to Deku Shoto Bakugo. I found that Season 1 was a pretty fairly balanced character study for both Deku and All Might. How the central conflict evolves from Deku's quirklessness to the fight against the League of Villains is tight, compact, and manages to transition well between. It's a natural growth of stakes that feels great despite there only being a dozen episodes to this season. No mini arc is held on for too long, the side characters in Class 1A have their moments without feeling overtly overbearing, except for Renito, who I'm gonna feed into a bronze bowl. And in spite of the online discourse around his character, I found Bakugo to not be that bad. Sure, I'd probably not be the biggest fan of being around him in real life, but he just seems to be a bit more brash of a version of the typical anime rival character. Maybe even not more. I've seen worse people stand, quite frankly. Side note, but that Bakugo vs. Rezo Death battle was fucking sick as hell. Can't wait for Gru vs. Megamind. To ring back around to Deku's quirklessness plotline, an initial reservation I had going in was how the whole quirkless plotline would be handled, given the obvious metaphor and comparison, but I think it's handled pretty decently. We have a few episodes of him being affected by it, both internally and externally, and it's made clear plenty of times that there are multiple reasons he got one for all, and that without any of those reasons, he wouldn't be anywhere remotely close to being a candidate for it. Cons, I did notice a lot of the music was reused throughout the season to the point it's noticeable for me, someone who doesn't really pay attention to score much, and that some of the line work does get a bit choppy in the last two episodes, so it's more the fault I've never paused any media ever than anything actively noticeable. Also, media and 8 out of 10. Deku Harm is base as fuck.